Thank you, Dr. Dabab, for that gracious introduction. Unfortunately, I don't have Berkeley on my resume like my boss and my distinguished co-panelist, but we'll struggle on nonetheless. And I would also like to thank the hosts of this year's U.S.-Saudi Business Opportunities Forum, which is bringing together public and private sector leaders to explore new opportunities for economic cooperation and collaboration. It is really, it's a pleasure as well as an honor to be joined by such distinguished panelists from government and from the private sector and to address the needs and requirements of our two nations as we try to build an energy future together. You know, the United States and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia share a long and distinguished history, friendship based on common values, on common interests, on common endeavors. We have been friends, we've been partners, we've been allies, and the strategic nature of that relationship between our two nations. And it's really not only, although it's heavily affected by our energy-related matters, but on broader economic, political, and security issues, it's tremendously important. I would submit to you it's tremendously important to each of us individually. It's important to the region, and I would submit to you it is important to the world, and I will return to that theme in a bit. In the energy sector specifically, Saudi Arabia's leadership in global markets is helping to strengthen energy security for the United States and for countries around the world. And certainly, Saudi Arabia's prodigious hydrocarbon resources will continue to play a dominant role in the country's and the world's energy landscape for years to come. But one of the things that I personally have found fascinating in my now relatively frequent visits to the kingdom, and which you now heard very eloquently expressed and articulated by Dr. Yamani, is what a genuinely diverse view the kingdom is taking about its energy future and the, I think it's fair to say, visionary aspect that they have applied to the way they are viewing the energy industry in the development of their prosperous and, as they have so well explained, sustainable future by investing in a wide array of technologies. We have a bilateral energy dialogue that the Deputy Secretary of Energy in the United States co-chairs with the Vice Minister for Oil, His Royal Highness, my good friend Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman. And I remember on a first occasion that I had to visit the kingdom in meeting with Minister Naimi, very quickly in the course of our conversation, he said, you know, we have three things in great abundance here: oil, sun, and sand. And proceeded to speak quite eloquently and at length about his vision from his perspective as oil minister of not just the utility, but the vitality of the solar vision to Saudi Arabia's energy future, given the tremendous opportunity cost that is entailed in relying on oil for domestic power generation. Since that opportunity, I have twice had the opportunity to visit the headquarters of the King Abdullah City for Atomic and Renewable Energy. I've had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Yamani there as well, and to see a bit about what you all have just witnessed through his eloquent presentation of the vision that K-Care is developing for the kingdom and for its role in the world. The kingdom's efforts to develop its abundant solar resources, to reduce energy consumption through efficiency, and I would note that the excellent presentation we just saw said that that vision is in fact anchored in energy conservation, which is, I think, extraordinarily prudent and wise, and to advance other clean energy technologies, whether wind or geothermal or nuclear, are efforts that in fact parallel those that we ourselves are undertaking in the United States of America, as are many, many other nations around the world. As the kingdom's domestic energy needs continue to grow and the country looks to free up additional crude oil volumes for export and other high-end uses, it will become even more important, as you've just heard, for the country to look to alternative energy resources to meet its domestic energy requirements. We also applaud the kingdom's commitment to invest not only in clean energy technology and infrastructure, but also in the education of its young citizens who will help to realize the vision that K-Care represents. And right at the very site of K-Care, they have put in place something which, although it's called a museum, as we discussed before the panel, is actually much more interactive. They're bringing groups of school children through to start to understand the potential of that kind of a clean energy future. And it's not just at that level of the young school children. The laboratories at King Abdullah University for Science and Technology that my boss, Secretary Chu, visited in 2010 already plays a key role in educating the clean energy pioneers of an emerging generation. I was also pleased to learn on my most recent trip to Riyadh that the newly completed campus for the Princess Noor bint Abdul Rahman University, one of the world's largest universities for women, includes state-of-the-art facilities for nanotechnology, biosciences, and other technical fields at the heart of understanding and addressing our shared energy challenges. The United States and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia already have a number of initiatives underway to advance our bilateral cooperation in the development and deployment of alternative energy technologies. This certainly includes our 2008 Memorandum of Understanding on the Peaceful Uses of Nuclear Energy that establishes an initial framework for nuclear cooperation between our two countries. Under this framework, there are already many opportunities to pursue expanded science and technology collaboration in the nuclear arena, including U.S. support for Saudi efforts to develop a cadre of experienced and qualified nuclear workers. Clean energy cooperation between our two nations also includes a renewable and alternative energy agreement signed in 2010 between Secretary Chu and the President of the King Abdulaziz City for Science and Technology, or CACST, Dr. Ul Sowail, who I had the opportunity to meet on an earlier visit. Under this agreement, for example, the Department of Energy's National Renewable Energy Laboratory will co-host an energy efficiency workshop in Riyadh in February that is focused on promoting energy efficient buildings and appliances and will include training on the use of software to model energy consumption and building design. In addition, it has been extraordinarily useful and productive to participate in these annual energy consultations with my colleague, His Royal Highness Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman, to continue to deepen our energy engagement and collaboration on a broad range of energy issues, from efficiency and renewables to carbon capture and nuclear energy. And I would just like to pause here to note that this dialogue, which has been enhanced and supplemented by our cooperation at the International Energy Forum, has proved its value in times of keen, even international stress, and at the time of the disruption of the loss of Libyan oil volumes from the market. I think we can all salute the leadership that Minister Naimi and others in the kingdom showed in making sure that the world remained well supplied with energy and working very closely with us, other consumers, and other producers. That's the kind of cooperation that is going to be critical, I think, to sustaining stability into our energy future. And in the private sector as well. Our companies, as you've already heard from Dr. Yamani, are already working together to exchange services and expertise in alternative energy technologies in ways that are leading to new business opportunities and economic growth. Our bilateral energy relationship and the partnership we share on all of these issues is a major priority for the United States, for the Department of Energy, and we look forward to building on that collaboration in the years ahead. Now, I'd like to take some time to talk specifically about one area in particular, the development of safe and secure nuclear energy in Saudi Arabia. As President Obama made clear in his address in Prague in April 2009, all countries who meet their non-proliferation obligations have the right to access peaceful nuclear technology. Globally, nuclear power is playing a significant and growing role in accelerating our progress toward a low-carbon future and in satisfying the increasing demand for continuous baseload electricity. Whether driven by environmental, economic, or energy security concerns, we see countries around the world continuing their commitment to move forward with investments in nuclear energy. In fact, there are more than 60 reactors being built in more than a dozen countries around the world as we speak. Now, these are obviously momentous and critical times for nuclear energy around the world, and there's clearly significant challenges that remain before all of us as we consider these opportunities. There are continuing financial challenges, given the capital-intensive nature of the investments needed to sustain large baseload investments in nuclear energy. Obviously, given the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear accident earlier this year, countries are pausing and studying deeply, as well they should, and I participated in June in the deliberations at the International Atomic Energy Agency, making sure that we take full account of the lessons learned from that episode so that we avoid recurrence of things that, even though there was a millennial aspect to the threat presented, obviously the ability to sustain such kind of assaults is going to be critical to our ability to successfully continue with nuclear energy, and we are learning all those lessons and seeking to apply them in our countries and comparing best practices around the world. And obviously in the security sphere, Iran's nuclear program raises important questions of how nuclear energy is employed and whether states will pursue nuclear expansion in a way that reduces proliferation concerns over the long term. And in this respect, I would also welcome and highlight for your attention the commitment to nonproliferation that Dr. Yamani alluded to in his remarks. Because of the dual nature of atomic fission, which inherently can be used either for peaceful purposes or in nuclear weapons, we must always be vigilant that the expansion of nuclear energy internationally does not lead to the proliferation of nuclear weapons. Even with all of the challenges that I have mentioned, however, the United States continues to view nuclear energy as an important element in a diverse energy portfolio in building our low-carbon future. We're working with partners from around the world to learn all of the lessons from the tragic accident in Fukushima and to apply them to our own approaches to nuclear safety. As we continue to improve nuclear safety, both in the United States and internationally, we can help to ensure that both the current generation of reactors and those future technologies can be operated safely. Like nuclear safety, which is the alpha and omega of things we do nuclear, again, as Dr. Yamani has already indicated, nuclear security, namely the preventing of the proliferation of nuclear weapons and guarding against the threats of nuclear terrorism, requires deep cooperation and engagement of the entire international community. As countries look at developing new civil nuclear programs, each nation must answer a series of questions that will help to inform the direction of its nuclear future. In other words, each government must ask itself how it can best develop the national infrastructures that will effectively support a safe and secure nuclear program. Questions like, how can we develop and coordinate stringent safety regulations and robust regulatory authorities? What do we need to do to build a trained and experienced nuclear workforce? What arrangements must be in place to assure the international community that all nuclear activities remain peaceful, verified, and secured against risks of terrorism? And how do we make our fuel cycle needs satisfied and meet them in a way that makes economic sense? The United States stands ready to support other nations as they work through the answers to these and other challenging questions that they need to address in developing their own nuclear future. As it relates to nuclear fuel cycle services in particular, I have seen in the meetings we've had with countries around the world a growing momentum to support an international framework for civil nuclear cooperation in a manner that would leverage the capability of the commercial marketplace to provide plant operators and governments with reliable access to front and back-end nuclear fuel services. We look forward to working to establish that framework, which in fact was something that I think President Obama spoke eloquently to when he addressed the world from the square in the Prague marketplace in April 2009, where that vision can be realized, where a commercial marketplace can reliably provide comprehensive fuel services. That framework will provide confidence to nations that their nuclear fuel service needs can be met and will be met. In that way, countries would be able to forego the massive capital investments needed to build domestic enrichment and reprocessing facilities and instead to invest those tens of billions of dollars in other priorities. This approach to nuclear energy development stands in stark contrast to the approach taken by Iran, which continues to develop dangerous enrichment and related activities in defiance of UN Security Council resolutions, imposing a serious danger to the region and to international peace and security. As we look to build a new energy future in the United States, in Saudi Arabia, and around the world, we cannot limit ourselves to hydrocarbons or renewables or nuclear energy. We have to build an energy future that uses all of them and, as has been earlier noted, anchored in conservation. We must develop alternative energy technologies, deploy them at scale, and spur economic growth in the energy sector. The private sector lies at the heart of these efforts and is, in fact, the driving factor, which is why fora such as this one here today are so important. As Saudi Arabia moves to diversify its energy mix and invest in new technologies, U.S. companies and the U.S. government stand ready to provide our assistance and support and to continue to deepen the strong relationship between our two nations. I look forward to continuing to work with all of you, both in government and in industry, to build a secure energy future for our people. The stakes, frankly, could not be higher. I think the prosperity that we can achieve is something that will benefit ours and all succeeding generations. And with a challenge like that before us and the capability of the people here in this room and those with whom you work with in government and industry, I think there's little that we cannot achieve. Thank you.